Hello, everyone. This is David Tanenbaum. I am here in San Francisco with David Russell, who is in Germany today. Hello, David.
Hello, David. Nice to see you again.
You too. And we are continuing our set of interviews about the Bach Lute Suites, which David is playing in historic Spanish churches. This one in a particularly beautiful and old monastery in
Yes.
Spain. And we're here today to talk about BWV 995, the suite commonly known as the Third Lute Suite. We've done a number of these interviews, and I thought we could do a kind of fun change of pace here. I have a friend sitting with me. I think David knows this person, I'm not sure, but who wanted to ask the first question. So I'm going to just move my computer over.
Hey, Sergio. Ah, what a nice surprise.
But
Fantastic.
we can see you over Zoom.
Yes, I know. Anyway, how are you?
Good, good. Not in good company here. So
Great. Fantastic. So what's your question?
okay, it's I saw the video, beautiful, beautiful. The sound is magnificent. Really great performance.
Yeah.
I was
Thank you.
curious about your ideas about length of the note, especially on the bass side. There's some probably there's a lot of thought you put on it, but can you elaborate about how you deal with the length of the notes? Um, Short versus a longer, or
Yeah. Well, I think obviously on the lute, they probably just didn't stop the notes because the notes died in a different way from a modern guitar. So I think we have to approach it much more like the harpsichordist or the pianist or something. And I think sometimes the articulation in the bass, if you do stop the bass notes, it cleans up the harmony. If you leave them ringing too long, often it muddies the waters. And especially, I was playing in all the suites, except the last one. All of them are in kind of big halls with a lot of echo. And so I really want to make sure that the echo didn't eat up the whole piece. And in the placing of the mics, it's kind of difficult to get it at a distance that picks up some echo, but that doesn't wash out. So if the piece is full of a lot of rhythmic vitality, I'll play the basses much shorter than Bach wrote, you know. In other occasions where I felt that it needs to be, I'll leave it a little longer than he wrote. I mean, like with David, we talked about the Prelude Fugue and Allegro. How in the Prelude Fugue and Allegro, how long do we leave those basses in the Prelude, where Bach has particularly marked in silences. And one of the things that we didn't talk about, because that was a great fun interview when David was all excited about the scores and things, I loved it. But one of the things that I didn't mention, because we talked about other things, is that I think often, for example, music that's written for the organ, if you leave the bass too long, it just completely mashes the music. So they often play the bass notes much shorter, and then that is echoed into the hall. So I think that's one of the reasons why in the prelude to the Prelude Fugue and Allegro, the basses, he's asked them for them to be shorter than we play. But I feel there, in that case, I leave it longer. In the third suite, there's several things, because the third suite has this, on the first movement, has that pedal bass, which isn't there on the cello version. It's a dom bom. Obviously, the lute can go A. Well, it would be G and go way down. On the guitar, we can't. But I didn't want to make the second one simply super quiet. I actually make those two notes quite important. So you have di-dom, di-da-dom, di-da-dom, and make sure that it's the pillars of the piece. Right? So you can do rubato, rubato, tempo, rubato, 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 tempo. So every time that comes, I tried to be really quite strict, and I was using the basses to try to make. So well, I'll call it the pillars of a French overture.
I noticed also
There you
that
go.
even in a single line, you're very careful with the amount of the length of the notes you're going to keep in order to connect one note to the next one. Like we're seeing two lines instead of one. In order
Yes, well, I think, yeah, I agree. I think often in Bach's music and others of the time, uh, out of one line, they create several apparent voices, and we can make it more obvious or less, depends on what we want to do.
Mhm.
So using the articulation, which is, I think, what you mean, when you cut notes or not cut notes,
Yeah.
or in the fast part of the prelude, the last note on, say, the high bit, this note, well, it's written as a 16th note, as a quaver. But if you leave it on, then
Yes.
the second line creates two voices. If
Yes.
you clip it, it makes actually a not very nice phrase. It's not a good phrase, So yes, on the cello, they have no choice. And they usually will use maybe little miniature rubatos to give the feeling. We can do it by voicing.
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
that's what I was using.
That's it.
And also the articulation in many occasions. For example, in the shortening of the notes, if you shorten one note, it makes the next note more important. So so you get an accent without having to play loud.
Mhm.
You can play it at a similar level and still get the feeling of the rhythmic vitality with it. So I use articulation a lot in all of the Baroque music.
Great.
Great.
It's been great seeing you again. I will have to go for a class.
Okay.
So
I'm really glad. Lovely to see
thank you
you,
for
Sergio.
the answers. Great.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ciao. See you soon.
And if there are perhaps one or two people in the world who don't know who that was the beloved guitarist composer Sergio Assad, who's going
That's
on.
right. Right.
So, yeah, David, I actually wanted to focus in for a second on the saraband, which
Okay.
is such an extraordinary movement. I
Yeah.
mean, the suite in general is the only one of the solo string suites that is all in French style. But this one is so spare. In fact, I've been told it has the fewest notes of any piece that Bach ever wrote. I don't know if I'm counting that, but it feels like that may be true.
Yeah.
But it just kind of throws us a curve in the first measure because we're kind of going about arpeggiating an A minor chord, and suddenly on the third beat, we land on an F, a low
Yeah.
F. We're kind of taught that second beats are important in saraband. It's not always true, but it's often true. Um, but you linger there so long, you almost make it like a measure of four. And I'm wondering, what I hear is that, that F kind of connects to the next harmony, which is a D minor. Were you thinking about that? I'm just curious about you wait so long on that F and then the subsequent G sharp.
You
Curious.
know, I struggled with the idea of ornamenting that one, right? That some people, and it's so spare, as you say, that it almost like, here, do what you can with this. And then I decided I'm not going to do it because every time I put them in, I mean, if it was playing in a concert, maybe you put in the odd little ornament because it's just gone, right? And okay, it was good or it wasn't. And but here, especially because it was for for the video, I really wanted to do what I thought was the most successful way. So ornaments, I ended up taking them out, and I wanted to make it more spare than spare. So I wanted to also give it more space than simply the notes in time.
Yeah.
Also, I think I'm playing in this huge kind of cathedral space, although the video had to be in a corner where the organ was, so you don't really perceive it so much. But still, the sound kind of lasted quite a long time. So dee da do dum fa ya and boom. I wanted to enjoy that note more rather than make it a sort of dance. Although, of course, the saraband is a dance. I think of it as fantasy music.
Yeah.
That one. It's
Yeah.
just there. And it's just there for the note and until you are satisfied with it, and then move into the next bar. You know, that was really the way. I mean, to be honest, I understand the idea of and actually it's not only in that bar that the bass note connects into the harmony of the next bar. That's of course a very clear way of doing it. But then it would be nice really to be able to hold the F, you know, hold the F and then do the next bar. You can't really do that. I mean, you could struggle with it, but I think it would make it uncomfortable. So just by giving it its time, I think works.
Yeah. And I think you bring out the poignancy of that moment where we don't know where we are, but then we realize it connects to the next. And so prolonging that, I think, really works. You know, I, Bach himself, of course, arranged this suite for the lute, and he didn't add a whole lot in that saraband. He could have added much more. He added quite a bit more in the other movements, but he
Yeah,
didn't add more there. I think he wanted to keep that one spare.
that's right. There's just a few bass notes, a few extra bass notes there. You know, a strange thing about the whole suite is actually we only have it in Bach's handwriting on the lute version. You know,
Yeah.
the other ones are someone else's writing, of course, I'm sure, with Bach's approval. But the you know, that whole thing is completely in his writing, and so he chose those notes. So we're not doing an arrangement at all. And as the only thing that we can't do that's in the lute are some of those far down basses.
Yeah.
You know,
And in
okay,
fact, the lute can't do everything that's in Bach's handwriting. I mean, it just doesn't quite fit. He didn't make a lot of mistakes writing for instruments, but it just shows us that he didn't really know the lute that well. You know, again, we
well,
come upon evidence that it's sort of like a composer working with the guitarist today, sort of getting close to it, and then the guitarist does the rest of the work to make it work. Yeah.
that's right.
What's your relationship with this suite? I don't think I've heard you play it before. I'm wondering what your.
No, well, you know, it's the only one that I never played in public.
Oh,
And yeah, I know when you wrote to me, you said it was the first one that you learned. Well, for me, it was the last one I learned. And of course, it's a piece that I've been able to play on and off. If you have students that are playing it, I think so. You study it, and especially the first movement, I had studied that because it's such an important work. Of course, I studied it, but really to take it to the level to where you feel completely comfortable to play it. It was the last one that I did because the other ones I had learned when even when I was a student, you know, and played them in concerts and things. So I loved doing it. I mean, it was just great, great fun.
it might be my favorite of the four. There's a kind of maybe just very personal and almost introverted quality to some of the movements that I just love. And
Mm.
wow, the performance is great. I just want to say that that acoustic, you know, we've heard you in different acoustics. I think some might have been a little bit longer, but there's something about the decay in this one which is so um, slow and regular, and it doesn't fall off quickly at all. It's almost like a perfect sounding acoustic in this video.
You know, I have to tell you, in all of the places that I've recorded, uh, there's been major problems with the sound because this monastery, the Samos, the one that I recorded in, it has a road, a main road, not a huge road, but it's a main road, sometimes with trucks on it.
Wow.
And it was raining that day. So when any car that went by, there was this shh away in the background, which is then amplified by the echo of the huge space inside. So to get some of the takes, it was just frustrating because when I was actually playing, I couldn't really tell. So I had to ask Maria, you know, mark down if we have a take, like, you know, we've done it and there's a car gone by, we really have to check to see, because so when I got back home and then had to do, there were quite a few takes that I just couldn't use, you know, the bits, you know, and for making a video, you need to make longer takes. I mean, if you're making just a CD, you can do it in smaller takes and edit it, but with a video, it's not so easy to do that. So, well, it's impossible. So you need to have longer takes. So it's like, you know, you're in this, things are really going well. I think, I hope a truck doesn't go by.
Oh, especially in a movement like the saraband, which is so spare.
Absolutely, yeah. You know, I recorded that several times in other in the church, in the church and in the monastery. I went to other places, but the other ones, there was too much background noise. You know, there was another place that had a beautiful echo in it, and I thought, I'll do the two slow movements, the Allemande and the Sarabande there. I made the recording, and we did it, but I just couldn't get takes that were silent enough, you know. And then there's, you know, in these monasteries, there are monks there praying in somewhere, and then there are visitors and things. So you have to kind of, you know, sometimes you don't notice until it's too late. You know, you've already gone home, and then you hear someone mumbling in the background. So I think if people listen very carefully, they might even hear the odd car go by. But you know,
it is
that's the way.
Modern life in an old church, so they would hear that.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I think this performance is just really beautiful, and I enjoyed it so much. And I just thank you for great playing, and I hope you play it in public since you haven't yet.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you know, it's a piece that many people already play. So, you know, I now really kind of moved into this thing of trying to play programs of music that other people don't play.
Yeah.
But I'll definitely keep it in my own repertoire, you know, for myself. And maybe play it in concert.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, it's the least flashy of the Lute Suites. You know, it doesn't have the, you know, some of the qualities of the others. But so I wonder about it in public. I just particularly love it. I think it's just so beautiful.
Well, I think it's super successful in public. You know, the second one I think is more difficult to convey. You know, the long fugue, and, you know, slow work. The third Lute Suite I think is super effective, and the first one as well, and the fourth one. You know, I feel second, which I absolutely love. You know, after having a love-hate relationship with it, because I played it for my final exam, and I thought I never want to see that piece again when I was 18 or 19 or something. So, you know, I absolutely love the piece, but I love it for myself. I'm not sure if I love it so much. Of course, I performed it, but I feel the third one is, of course, it's going to be great in public.
Cool. Well, I look forward to that. David, thank you so much. And we have one more to go. Can't wait.
Yes. Look forward to it.
Yes, me too.
Okay, thanks again.
Bye for now.